Hey everyone, welcome to Winning the Challenger Sale. This month we've been exploring the role of technology in empowering sales success. This is a time of massive change as we're witnessing with the rise of AI and seeing consistent new channels begging for our attention. We need to cut through the noise, use tech as a tool, and empower our sales teams to work effectively and efficiently. With that in mind, I'm happy to introduce our guest today, Jeff Rosset, founder and CEO of Sales Assembly. Sales Assembly provides a refreshing approach to skill development and empowers go-to-market teams with resources and support to elevate performance. Jeff, so excited to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. It's great to be here. I've been a big fan of Challenger ever since I read the first book like a dozen years ago, and
Yes,
great
yeah, 2010.
to know you and working with the Challenger team over the past couple of years in our partnership. So excited to be here and chat.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been really exciting, Jeff, to see obviously all the growth within Sales Assembly, to be part of your events, to be part of your team. Um, but I know that Sales Assembly was actually like the fourth company you started. So as a fellow Chicago entrepreneur, with those unfamiliar, can you talk about sort of your other ventures and how did that lead to Sales Assembly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, probably nothing to write home about. Typical entrepreneur story. Tried a bunch of things, tinkered around until we finally figured out what worked. I started my first business in college. I started a painting business where I just hired a bunch of college and high school kids, and we went around and painted a few hundred homes in the Chicagoland area. Ran that business for a couple of years while I was in college. Just got a lot of experience managing people and budgeting and doing all my own sales and buying supplies and all that fun stuff. Thinking back, it was like the epitome of cold calling because I would walk around in like a feet of snow in the middle of Chicago and literally knock on doors and ask people if they wanted me to come back the next week to do an estimate on their house to have it painted in the summer. So talk about, cold calling, hands are frozen.
Right.
Um, Graduated from college, got a job in sales, didn't love it, decided to leave and start my own business to do leadership consulting. I did that for about 3 years, and it was just like a combination of bad timing with just the economy. I had started the business in the fall of 2008, so
Oof.
not the best time to start kind of a bootstrapped consulting business.
Yeah.
That coupled with the fact that I was still young in my career, I had a lot of ambition and ideas, but didn't have the probably the brand credibility or some of the resources that I would have needed to really scale that business. So I did it for a few years, made a few bucks. It was fun, learned a lot. Wasn't ultimately my calling. And then the TLDRs, I went back in house to do some sales for a couple of companies. Wound up in the tech community here in Chicago, working for a startup. And I just really came to realize that there was a pretty big need for a community that brought together the sales and revenue leaders and then all the people on their teams to get together and collaborate and learn from each other and share ideas, specifically here in Chicago. This was back in 2017. And so 6 years ago, it was before a lot of the online communities had bubbled up.
Right,
There were
right.
really only a few places that people could go to get access to their peers within revenue, within tech. And so we were serving a pretty big need here in Chicago. And we were doing a lot of in-person programs and events. And then, COVID came and came into our lives, and our business model kind of pivoted to more of an online model. And we've introduced a number of new services since then. But it's been a fun ride. I've learned a lot from the experience of starting off as what I would consider a business owner and transitioning to a CEO and having to build a team and understanding how to navigate the hiring situation and leading other people and building more strategy around customer success and marketing. It's been a fun journey. And the exciting part about Sales Assembly is I feel like we're just at the tip of the iceberg here. We're really just getting
Yeah.
with everything that we're doing.
No, obviously, attended a lot of your events in the early days. And so, definitely was always felt so fortunate that we had Sales Assembly. And to your point, there wasn't anything out there that was bringing revenue leaders together, especially in person back in the day. So it was great. And it's also really good to see how you guys have pivoted to online and I know, doing your events, your events and everything. It's been great. So, obviously today we're talking about tech empowered sales and that's our core focus. So we're kind of at a time where we're seeing salespeople pivot and adapt to new environments. Obviously, for many reasons you could just mention, you guys pivoted during COVID to be more tech focused, more online. The economy, the rise of AI, social selling. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in the intersection of sales and tech. So what are you, I mean, of all of those things, what are you most excited about and what are you kind of keeping your eye on?
I was like one of these. I was never like the person that was waiting in line outside of an Apple store to get like an iPhone back.
Right, the latest version. Yeah.
I've never been like a big, like tech or I don't go to like the futuristic, car shows and things like that.
Yeah.
When AI really started to kind of roll out last fall, I was just really really interested in it because I see so much opportunity for effectiveness and efficiency within go-to-market teams by
Yeah.
utilizing newer forms of technology. And I went like all in for like 8 to 10 weeks, just nerding out on a bunch of different products and testing out ChatGPT and reading a bunch of white papers and talking to a lot of my colleagues. And over the past number of months, I feel like things have really started to mellow out a little bit. I think there was a lot of smoke, 6 to 9 months ago, not a
Yeah.
lot of fire. And when I think about the advancements of technology, specifically within go-to-market, you hear a lot of chatter about, oh, our sales reps going to be replaced, and
Right. With all the bots.
I'm like, no, it's not going to
Yeah.
happen. You
No.
can't do empathy with a bot, and you can't build relationships, and you can't critically think about how to tie one piece of information. There's a place and a function for the advancements of technology within within B2B tech, specifically within the go-to-market teams. And I think where that place is today, now 3 to 4 years from now, it might be a different story. But
Right.
in today's place, it's to make us as sellers and us as leaders more effective and efficient with the work that we are doing. It is not to replace us. It is not to allow us to offload half of our roles. It's to take the jobs that we're
Right.
doing and to be more effective. And like good examples of that are tools like Gong, right?
Right.
As a leader, I don't have to necessarily spend an hour of my time shadowing a call with a rep to understand where they might need improvement. I could listen to a Gong call on 2 speed,
Yep. 2X always, all day long.
or I can get the AI based
Filter.
summaries and
Yeah.
the data that I want to see and just get the highlights that I need to know and then be able to address with my rep the feedback that they need without necessarily. So those are good examples of like it's taking what would have taken an hour of a leader's time to be on a call with a rep to now they could do it in 5 to 15 minutes and probably provide more effective results than what they would have done previously. And there's a lot of examples of that I'm seeing. And there's a lot of tools that are coming out that are helping leaders, reps, marketing folks, CS leaders to be more effective with the jobs that they're currently doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I was just using this example in a previous podcast around the idea of we obviously use Gong, and we introduced a new product to the market called Loop, and it's been out in the market about 6-7 months, and we kept saying it's so weird, like we just don't feel like it's selling. We're not sure what's happening. We're not understand why it's like not catching on. And then we put in a Loop filter in our Gong calls, and we saw that our reps were just not mentioning it. And so then you go back and you say, okay, what do we need to do from an enablement perspective, from a marketing perspective? Like clearly our reps aren't comfortable talking about this product yet. And
Right.
so, as we went back and started to, retrain them, recoach them, give them more tools and to be able to sell it, it was a great, we never would have figured that out as quickly as we did, and also be able to course correct if we didn't have something like any type of conversational intelligence tool. So completely agree.
And I think that's the way that leaders have to look at technology right now. It's not about loading up the stack just to be able to say that we do and there's so much crossover, there's so much consolidation, like tools like Gong,
Right.
Reach, and Clary, like they're blending amongst each other. They're starting to introduce these new filters. So I don't think it's as daunting as people once thought. I think what we just need to do is think to ourselves, what's the problem that we have as sellers or leaders? Like, what can't we do effectively? Or what does it
Right.
take us 90 minutes to do that we really want to be able to do in 20? And then my guess is there's probably a technology or a resource out there that can help you accomplish that. as long as you know what you're looking for. And I
Yeah.
think that's like the big thing that people have to keep in mind is like, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve with technology? Let me go find that technology for my specific use case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to your point, like I think people went crazy, bought a lot of tech. Now, obviously with the economy being a little a little uneasy these days, people are saying, well, you know what, maybe I'll hold off on some tech, maybe I'll consolidate some tech, maybe I don't need this tech. So in some ways it's good, I think, in that people are starting to just reevaluate their platforms, look at where the integrations are, look at what makes the most sense from a tech stack perspective. So I think that's definitely something that people have to consider.
Right, right. And even thinking outside the box too, like it doesn't need to be the traditional like SaaS platform, like, heavy
Yeah.
implementation, expensive SaaS platforms that support sellers. Like I'll give another example, a small little company like ours, we've really struggled with like content production and asset production and like branding consistency just because we don't have like a marketing team in house, right? We have
Right.
couple of people that have skill sets, but we don't have a full blown like branding department. And we've started to use like a service digitally that produces like tons of really great assets that are branded within our style guidelines in a very efficient and time oriented way for like a tenth of the cost that we would typically
Mhm.
pay a 1099. So what that's allowed us to do is very simply like take a podcast that maybe our CRO is on, use ChatGPT to create a summary of the transcript, plug that into this new tool that we're using to create a 3-page white paper with 4 very nice action items, and then give that to our sales team to use to send to prospects that we have in the funnel. And 3 months ago, we wouldn't have been able to do that if we weren't using ChatGPT to create the summary and then this new designed resource to create the white paper. And now that we have these resources in tandem, now we can give our sellers the assets that they need to go out there and be more effective and help to move deals along through the pipeline.
Yeah, no, I love that. We use a similar one, Super Slide, to do some of our outsourcing of like our presentations and content and stuff, from a formatting perspective. So,
Right,
no,
right.
I think it's like you said, everyone's sort of, whether it's tech, not tech, outsourcing. I think even this idea of remote work, right? The fact that we have global, we have access to people globally. I think it really does drive efficiency around like, what is our core business and like, what do we do really well and what can we outsource? And now there's lots of ways to outsource that, it's a lot easier now to outsource things, and even sometimes it's cheaper to outsource, to your point.
Right. Totally. Mm-hmm.
So switching gears a little bit, we've obviously been talking about the efficiency, but like I know top of mind right now, given the economy, is a generating pipeline. And, I feel like there's lots of new formats given AI, given ChatGPT. We're hearing more and more about social selling. How do we continue to stay innovative and, finding our customers? We know that cold outreach is tough, especially in this economy. So, where do you see people using technology the most from a pipeline perspective?
Yeah. And if we want to talk specifically about like social selling, I think that's one that's, on
Yeah.
top for a lot of people. And I'll probably disappoint by saying that, like, my perspective, there's no magic bullet and there's no
Yep.
easy solution to social selling in 2023. Um, what what COVID plus the rise of a lot of technologies like AI plus the economy, which has really pushed go-to-market teams just to bombard the ecosystem with messaging because everybody is thirsting for more pipeline. It's resulted in a scenario, and you probably experienced this as an executive yourself, just like I do. The amount of outreach that we receive on a daily basis is
It's,
astronomically
it's
larger than
insane.
it's ever been, right?
Yep.
So in any given day, I probably, and I'm a small little CEO of a 12, 13 person company. Okay. Imagine you're the CRO of a $50 million company and how much outreach they're probably getting. I probably get between LinkedIn DMs and emails,
Oh
at,
yeah.
at least 15 cold outreaches a day. Okay.
Hmm.
And so when it comes to that and everything sounds the same and it's all like
Right.
really rapidly done, and it's just so easy for people to click a button and blast 1,000 people with a semi-personalized email. It
Right.
doesn't work anymore, and people are now tuning those messages out. So what is it that sellers could do to break through specifically within like outbound but also like social selling related? I think it's really taking the time and the effort to be more thoughtful and intentional with what we're doing. And this is really a manual task. This is not something that you're going to be able to do via technology. So if I was an account executive and I had 500 prospects that I was looking to engage with to build pipeline, I would be connecting with all those people on LinkedIn, but then I would be following them around and I would be liking and commenting on their posts.
Exactly.
I would be stalking their company page and the other executives at that company. Anytime they publish content, put out a webinar, I would read it, I would listen to it. I would then craft a really thoughtful, short and sweet direct message or email to that person, and specifically explaining what it is that I read or saw, and then thoughtfully tie that into my product, not doing like the hard pivot of like, hey, I saw that you were featured on XYZ. By the way, here's what my company does. Like, we as buyers see right through that. Like, craft a story, show them how you are a solution-oriented partner that's going to help them with whatever they're focused on right now, and be the solution-oriented person to help them solve those problems. And it's a combination of personalization, proper persistence and effectiveness with the outreach. And then obviously sales 101, it's being value driven and making sure that your solution is able to solve their problem. And like, there's a lot of people that do it really well on LinkedIn these days. The reason why is because they've built a really strong brand, and they do this really well because they're intentional about the things that they do. It's not, they're not just signing up for a bot and sending out like really casual templatized notes to all these people that they're trying to get in front of. They're being very specific and they're being very intentional, and it works. And if people are willing to put the time and the effort into leveraging a super powerful tool like LinkedIn, like I think about myself as a seller back in like the mid 2000s, I was starting in the workforce like just as LinkedIn was getting going, and just when Google was getting going, right? And like, I couldn't imagine being a sales rep in the 90s without being able to Google things, and then without being able to keep in touch or do my on LinkedIn.
I can tell you it was hard. It was very hard. You used to have to keep notes. I'd have like a notebook. Like
notebooks, and like, going through the yellow pages looking. I mean, it's insane. So like, the fact that reps and leaders don't strategically leverage LinkedIn better than they do, it baffles me. And it's so easy. You just have to put in the effort.
No, it's funny. I talked to some of our reps and they're like, I'm not someone that likes to put things out there, and I'm saying, then just comment on people, even if you just like don't post that often, but you just comment on what people say, and find people that you're reading their articles, you're linking to their blogs, like whatever it is, and get to know them. It doesn't mean that you have to be posting all the time, right? It's really not just about that. It's really about getting to know who your buyers are. And so that's something that we've worked with. We've been working with our BDX team on, especially, right? Because they're like, we're young, we have nothing. What do we have to say? Like, what can I teach someone? So I think it's really a great way to learn as well. And especially to your point, like, learn about your customer, right? What are they talking about? What's interesting to them? What are they resharing, reposting, right? So absolutely 100% agree.
And here's the difference between posting and commenting. When I make a post, that's being distributed out to my circle. And sure, I'm going to get views and engagement from people that I'm not connected to, but it's going to start with my immediate circle. Those are already people that I know. Those are not my prospects. But if I go on LinkedIn and I make a list of 25 prospects that I'm going after, it's really easy to go to the top right corner of all those people's profiles and click the little bell, so I'm alerted every time they make a post. And then that way, the next time they make a post, I get an alert. I hop right in within 10 minutes. I'm one of the first people on their post. I'm making a thoughtful comment. They're going to see that. They're going to read that. So it doesn't get lost in the shuffle of everything else, because I'm one of the first people in. And then their contacts and their colleagues and the other executives at their company are probably going to see my comment. And now it allows me to get visibility in front of other people, in addition to better interaction with the prospect.
Right.
It's really easy. Click the bell button on 25 of your prospects and start commenting on their stuff within a half an hour every single time that they post. It's amazing the type of engagement you'll get.
Totally. I love that. Such a great tip for people. So I know, I've obviously did a lot of research. I've known you for a long time. And one of the things that really stuck out when I was looking at one of your interviews was on the B2B revenue leaders. one of the points you made about using AI, so getting back to this tech and tools, and you said, AI and how it won't be replacing jobs, which we kind of talked about, but it will be mandatory tool to get work done more efficiently and at a high quality. So it's, I think that's such an important piece. And I just want to make sure we get to that. Like, as teams better utilize AI and automation, what would you say are like the top 2 to 3 things that free salespeople up to focus on? I mean, I think the idea is right. It'd be great to have extra time and be like, oh, I use that time to relax and meditate and self-care, which of course we all need to be doing. But, what are the things when we say, okay, great, it makes us more efficient. What should we be doing instead? And you just gave the example, even the LinkedIn example, right? But like, what are some other things that we think that would give salespeople the opportunity to do?
Yeah. So if I'm a salesperson and if I could find even 5 hours a week of time that I now have available to myself that prior I was spending doing some administrative task or whatever. If I have just 5 hours a week, I am putting that directly into nurturing my pipeline. Because what we all know is that sales cycles take longer, there's more decision makers involved, and there's more competition for that business. So how am I going to win business? I'm going to win business not by getting more doors open, like not by filling the top of the funnel with more opportunities, like that's important. But the opportunities that I have in the funnel, how do I drive the conversion rate from 10% to 15% or 15% to 22%? That's where I personally am going to be able to significantly impact my results. And so if I have 5 hours a week that is now available to me, I'm spending more time researching my buyer, the individual. I'm finding more time to multi-thread within the account. I'm spending more time reading industry reports and white papers to become more knowledgeable on my industry so I could be more knowledgeable and more value additive to them when I'm in a conversation. Because the last thing that I want is for my buyer to explain a pain that they have on a discovery call and for me to not have any sort of opinion on that. If I don't have an opinion, now I'm not being a resource for them. Now all I can do is be like, oh, I see that's a priority. Well, would you like to buy some of my product? Like you can't do that. So that's where I would be dedicating the extra time. And that's where we encourage our team. It's like, if we're making ourselves more efficient because of the use of technology, let's apply those free hours back into managing and cultivating the current pipeline.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I think very similarly at Challenger, obviously our motto is teach, tailor, and take control. And the teaching piece that you just talked about, right? If your customer is talking to you about a problem in their industry or something that's going on internally within their company, you want to be able to teach them something new, give them an insight that they might not have thought about. And in order to be able to do that, you take time and research that business. You can't just magically come up with these insights if you haven't taken the time. So,
right.
No, I love that. I love the idea of once again, constantly. I think, when the economy is good, right, a lot of people can sell. But I think when the economy is tough, it's really about the people who can teach them something different, create an insight, create some sort of relationship and trust, and be that trusted advisor that goes way beyond that relationship selling.
Yeah. And as a buyer, Andy, can you remember the last time that like a sales rep taught you something where you left that call and you slacked your executive team and you were like, hey, everybody, we really have to think about X, Y, Z. Like, when was the last time that happened? For me personally, it hardly ever happens. And not because I'm smart and I already know everything. It's because sales reps just, for the most part, the average ones just don't take the time to dedicate themselves in the right way to being that resource. And the ones that like you hang up a discovery call or a demo call and you have information that is going to make you or your company better that you didn't have 45 minutes ago, that is gold when it comes to the relationship.
Yeah, we talk about this at Challenger a little bit. Like, so we always use the analogy, like a waitress versus a nutritionist, right? You order something, fattening at a restaurant. You're like, hey, I want a, chocolate sundae. A waitress brings it to you and is like, this is what you asked for. A nutritionist will say, hey, I know you've been talking about trying to get healthier. I know you've been trying to, do better with your workout plan. Here's, a bowl of fresh fruit that might give you that same, enjoyment, at least long-term. It might make you feel better and be successful. Right. So really thinking about this idea of like, serving that immediate need versus really thinking about long-term, how do you make your customers successful? So,
Right.
So, okay. So switching gears, as we close this out, we've talked a lot about obviously tech-enabled selling. what else do you think? I mean, in the next, I mean, now I just say like a year because who knows, right? But like in the next year to 18 months, like what do you think is coming down the pipeline that we still haven't really seen yet from like a tech perspective?
I don't know. I mean, the tech landscape, it develops so fast, and there's fads that come and go. Um, Again, I don't think it's going to be something that is a solution to, hey, we no longer have to have, reps doing outreach because it's all,
Right.
by a bot or technology. I really think it's going to be things that um, help you be more effective with the administrative part of your job. So like the amount of, if you're spending 5 hours a week updating Salesforce and doing other administrative tasks, it's going to be technology that allows you to go from 5 hours to 1 hour.
Yeah.
And it's going to be things that allow you to do research on your prospects in a smart and efficient way faster than you can do now. And it's going to be and we're seeing tools like that are coming out. I can't think of many off the top of my head that I've actually used before, but I think these are the things. Like we have the staples, we have the gongs and the outreaches and the Clarys and the Showpads of the world. We have the LMSs, we have the CRMs. Like that stuff is table stakes. It's not going away. It's those kind of like fringe solutions that
Right.
they're not going to make or break a tech stack. They're not going to make or break a budget, but they're things that could shave off an hour here, 90 minutes here. And when you extrapolate that across 20, 30, 50 people within the go-to-market team, that time adds up pretty considerably to be able to be reinvested back into high quality, high performance activities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm along those lines. I think for me, from a marketing perspective, you're on podcasts. I have a podcast, right? Like figuring out, measuring, right, the effectiveness of a podcast. Obviously we know from a brand perspective, we know from a education perspective, but like from an actual like lead perspective, right? Because obviously we don't capture leads through podcasts unless we know that people self-identify as that's how they heard about Challenger or Sales Assembly. So I think really also trying to figure out, and it kind of ties in with social selling, like, right, like how do you really figure out that attribution data? So.
Yeah, I mean, attribution that's been the crux of so many marketers' dilemmas for so long. Is like, how do we attribute, really, and it's not about vanity metrics. It's not about taking credit, right? In my opinion,
No, not at all, right? Like I don't need credit for the podcast. I just want to know that all these hours are
exactly
working, right?
Right. It's a good ROI, right? If we're going to invest the time and resources into building, a heavy blog or, a 1,500 word article or the podcast, or we're going to events, or we're spending a lot of time and effort on paid ads or SEO or whatever the case might be. It's like,
Right.
Let's just make sure that the financial and the time that we're putting in is a good ROI, and the opportunity cost is not being lost because it's something that we're not spending that time and money on something else. So it's not about just being able to check a box and give somebody a trophy. It's about, where are we spending our time and money? Is it working? And if it's not working, let's kill it and let's spend that time doing the things that are working.
Right. No, absolutely. Love it. Okay, last question for you. And then I promise I'll let you go. But this has been so fun. So I love to ask people, if you could go to lunch with anyone, they could be living or dead, sales and marketing or not, who's top of mind right now that you would love to have lunch with?
Can I pick a dead person that's not
Yes.
sales and
Yes.
marketing? Okay.
Yeah.
I'd probably love to go to lunch with either Steve Jobs
Yeah.
or like Andrew Carnegie from
Well, yeah.
the 1800s. Like I'm like a big nerd for.
No, yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I mean,
Like,
Carnegie, like the
is
steel,
Yeah. Is business history like a category? Because if it is, like I'm a nerd. I love documentaries. Like I just watched the BlackBerry movie.
Oh yeah, that was really good.
I love the WeWork series that Apple had. Like I love just seeing the story of like brands and really innovative people that have built strong businesses and were just beyond their time for where they were. So like Steve Jobs, that'd be cool. Andrew Carnegie, like becoming one of the richest people in the world, having started from his humble beginnings, building a steel empire in the United States. That's really neat. So I think that's kind of like where I would trend.
No, that's like actually there's a podcast called Revisionist History with Malcolm Gladwell, and it's one of my favorites because it does go back into history. And one, it kind of gives you the what really happened, because often we tell ourselves a little bit of a different story of what happened, but it's also like a lot of it has to be like, how did this really start and like what contributed to that, right? So
What about you? Who's your person?
yeah, no, it's a good question. So, I'm constantly like, thinking about like what's top of mind and what's I think interesting for me right now. And I'll say, because I just mentioned the podcast, I was just listening to a podcast by Malcolm Gladwell, and I think I'm just always so fascinated by how he thinks about things and the reframe of whether it's something that happened historically, whether it's something that's happening currently in business. He just did a whole series on like women's sports and just like why it is the way it is with women's sports. And so just really, I love when you can mix, you talked about business history. I love mixing business history with really good data and, being able to essentially understand something from that data perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. And I've read a few of his books. It's been a while since I picked up one of his books, but
Yeah, his books are great, right? Obviously, Outlier, Tipping Point, always good. But like his podcast is just, once again, just really interesting. I'm always, a big fan now of other podcasts. To your point, like we want sellers to make us think. I want podcasts to make us think also,
yeah,
right? So,
totally. I love it.
All right, last question. This is the easy one. How best should our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, just on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active. The rest of our team at Sales Assembly is pretty active. So any one of us, we're putting out content pretty much on a daily basis, sharing our thoughts, our point of view around sales and go-to-market and the tech ecosystem, entrepreneurship, nerdy topics like that. If those are the types of things that you're interested in, follow any one of us. And that's probably the best way. Yeah.
No, perfect. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you on, Jeff. I'm so excited about all your success. I feel like I've known you guys for a long time, and obviously Chicago is very lucky to have you, and the rest of now I should say the larger ecosystem outside of Chicago is very lucky to have Sales Assembly. So thank you so much for being on, and have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, Andy, this was great. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. I've loved getting to know you and the team, and look forward to chatting soon.